The following program may not be suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Hello, and welcome back to The World is a Dangerous Place. This time, we'll hop into the near future to bring you the Somnium Files. The Somnium Files were released in September 2019 to the Switch, PlayStation 4, and PC, with an Xbox One release 3 years later. The game was developed by Spike Chunsoft, known for game series such as Danganronpa, Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, and also developed the Mario and Sonic at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games. The Somnium Files is an adventure visual novel that takes place in the near future Tokyo, as well as in the dream world, known as Somnia. We begin as the camera lowers into a storm cloud, eventually revealing a merry-go-round. There's some kind of caution tape around it, and we learn that someone sits tied to one of the horses, dead. The victim was stabbed multiple times with an ice pick and had their left eye removed. We're Special Agent Kaname Date of the Metropolitan Police Department in Tokyo, Japan, specifically part of the Advanced Brain Investigation Squad, or ABIS for short. The rain makes it difficult for us to determine who could have caused this, but we're told by our boss that something like this happened 6 years ago, and someone might be copying them. It seems strange to wait 6 years to try to reenact a serial killer, but someone wants attention. We ourselves also don't have a left eye, but an AI ball has replaced it, allowing us to be a superhero. We learned that the previous serial killings had the victim's right eye removed, not their left though. So right now, it doesn't seem like it's likely that it's the same person. This murder does hit close to home though. We knew the victim, Shoko Nadami, and her daughter and our roommate Mizuki is inside the merry-go-round, holding the ice pick. We take her to the hospital and fall asleep near her bed, entering Somnium. In Somnium, our AI ball, or Aiba, takes over and can interact with things that we tell her to. We enter an unfamiliar house with a skeleton and eventually manage to unlock the door using a gun. We open the door and see a mysterious man standing over a bleeding woman. Before we can ask questions, we wake up. We make our way to the police headquarters and meet with our boss again. We get some lore on our Aibo. We also learn that the murder happened in the Kapasaki district, east of real-life Shinagawa and Ota cities. Speaking of Ota, a NEET named Ota called the murder using a payphone, and we're gonna pay him a visit. Ota isn't at home, but his mom is running a diner that doesn't seem to be quite open yet, likely as it's not even 11 in the morning. His mom, Mayumi, also says that Ota isn't home, but he's likely at the Lemniscate building, an agency where an idol that he idolizes works. Mayumi doesn't trust the idol though. She says the idol is a witch, and is up to no good, and eventually we calm her down enough to drop her floral pattern knife. We make our way to Lemniscate and find Ota in the lobby, and learn that he's no ordinary simp, and that he sock puppets online to white knight the idol Aset. He calls her Tessa though, as only her true fans will call her that. She's good at dancing and games, but not great at singing. With our newfound knowledge, we blackmail him as any righteous person would do, and learn that he went to Bloom Park with Mizuki, but he ditched her when they found the body. Mizuki received a message saying to go to Bloom Park, but she wanted backup as it's been abandoned after a mysterious chemical plant explosion several years back. Aset then joins us after her studio recording. It turns out that her, Ota, and Mizuki are all friends, as Mizuki also spends time at Lemniscate as her dad, Renju Okiura, owns the company. As we leave to go back to the scene of the crime, Aset blackmails us into tagging along. Back at Bloom Park, Iris teaches us about Egyptian mythology, and more importantly, that the left eye of Horus is known as the Eye of Wadjet, and has been used in other instances, such as the all-seeing eye of the Illuminati. Iris then collapses and we carry her back to the car and do some quick math and learn that she's about 105 pounds, which she's stored in the old noggin for no real reason. We take Iris home after a day of investigating and learn that her house was the one that we saw in our dream. Not just that, but her mother was the person that was shot. Eventually, we learn that she was in fact shot in the break-in several years ago, but ultimately survived at the cost of never being able to use her right arm again. We also learned that she was a classmate with Renju in high school, and met his ex-wife Shoko. We drink our tea and make one of the biggest mistakes of our lives so far. We try to shake hands with the person without the ability to raise their right arm. Thoroughly embarrassed, we leave hastily for police HQ. Mizuki still isn't able to talk, so we sync with her to see if we can figure out what's causing her to be mute. We also meet Amanoma Futa, or Pewter, the person who developed Aiba. He dresses futuristic and likes green, so we like him for now. Here's a good time to note that the story branches to different routes depending on your decisions in Somnium. In order to get to the true ending, we'll need to go through all of the other routes first to learn more about the world as well as to gain evidence of what's happening. After playing the game, I learned that there's a more efficient route, which I did not take, but even doing things efficiently, we would still need to have backtracked. Because of this, the story may get a little confusing. Part of that may be the actual story, but I don't do it any favors, so I want to apologize in advance. In Somnium, we arrive back at the merry-go-round. We make our way to the first fork in the road. We can either move the cage to reveal a picture, or let balloons free. We pick the picture as it appears to be of Mizuki's family, and piece together the image to return back to the main dream. We then manage to slow the horses down and get to Mizuki hiding in the merry-go-round. After being hugged by Aiba, Mizuki begins crying, but does regain her ability to talk. We talk to her in the sync room, but don't get any new leads, only learning that she had the ice pick as she felt that she needed to do something. We learn later that she got a message from her dad to meet him in the park. In Somnium, we notice that Mizuki may have seen someone else at the park running away, and as much as we want to pin this on Ota, we'll need evidence. We take Mizuki back to the scene of the crime as she hasn't fully gone insane yet, but don't find any new clues. Renju was at the station for questioning, but was released, and we're really at a loss of where to go, so we want to talk to Renju to see if maybe he has anything that can help us. But no one's seen him or heard from him since he left the police station. One place Renju may be, though, is at Sunfish Pocket, a maid cafe that he owns. We make our way there, reassuring Mizuki that at the very least, she still has one parent alive. Parents are overrated anyway, and therapy is quite good nowadays, so we leave Mizuki in the hospital and go back to work. Renju's left eye was also missing, but we can't figure out a motive for these killings. The previous killer, or the Cyclops killer, removed the right eye from women. Both of Mizuki's parents' left eyes were removed, and even more so, Renju breaks the mold as he's the first non-woman to be killed with this trademark. As I said before, therapy is excellent in the future, and Mizuki is ready to see her dad again immediately, so we take her back to Sunpo. Now that there's light out, we can see that it's a mermaid-themed cafe, and appropriately, Renju was hung up like a prized catch. In an oil drum, we notice that Renju's favorite watch was at the bottom, our first break in the case. It must have fallen out when Renju was being transported to the cafe. We have an informant in Golden Yokocho, the owner of Snack Marble. We catch up with Mizuki while waiting for Mama to show up, and it's the most that we talk to Mizuki in a long time despite her living with us. Mama tells us that Renju's lover gave him that watch, and that it was his most prized possession. It happened after Renju and Shoko divorced, and it could be that whoever his lover is, maybe got jealous of something. In any case, we find that Renju also had dealings with the Yakuza, so we stop by for a visit, ditching Mizuki at Marble. Moma is the head of the Kumakura gang, after his brother Rohan was arrested and declared insane. They're mostly employed now by groups such as Lemniscate, as well as shady companies in the case that there are other unsavory folk around. Using our X-ray vision, we learn that someone is hiding in the back room and call out to them. We meet a congressman, So Sajima, who's visiting for personal reasons. We don't have anything that'll stick on him, so we take our exit. It turns out that everyone so far seems to know everyone else, but understands that they don't have to tell us anything, which is really convenient, but it's also really frustrating for this case. On our way back, we get a call from a policeman who recorded a tip from a current inmate. Number 89, as he's known, says that Shoko was just the first domino to fall, and that there will be others. We then learn that he called before Renju died, so something is definitely fishy, and it's not just Renju. At Lemniscate, we learn that Ota saw Iris with Renju yesterday just before the time of death, so we take her back to HQ for some questioning. Using our quick math, we know that there was a total weight in the elevator going to Sunpo of 310 pounds. Iris weighs about 105 and Renju weighs about 158. Finally, an oil drum is about 55 pounds. The total weight of everything is 318 pounds, but Renju pooped himself beforehand, which could lower the overall weight a bit. Iris plays hardball, but we take out the big guns. It's Somnia time. There's a warehouse with a TV that when we turn the dial, we see a murder happening. Not just any murder though. It's one from the initial Cyclops killings. There's other TVs and mannequins around the warehouse, and we reenact the scenes. Somehow Iris knew about these killings intimately, but what's more concerning is that we see our face in the shard of glass that kills the final person. We still haven't gotten any closer to figuring out who killed Mizuki's parents, and if anything, we're now implicating ourselves, so we take Iris back to Marble to debrief, where we're met by Ota. We're not too smart and fall for the obvious trap, getting tased by Ota, and they both run off. When we wake up, it's early morning. Boss calls us to let us know that Iris is in real trouble, so we rush to the Okiura cold storage warehouse where she's being held. Iris is currently alive, but her left eye is missing. We can only watch the events unfold in a live stream where a polar bear and Ota fight off camera, and ultimately the polar bear wins, bisecting Iris with an ice saw. We make it to the warehouse and see the polar bear was also killed, and unmasking it reveals Ota. Our best guess at this point is a murder-suicide, but we're really at 4 people dead with no reason behind why. The next day we meet with Pewter, who tells us that it has to be a different killer from the serial killing 6 years ago. The killings were done by Rohan Kumakura as well as an accomplice. Of the 2 killers, one's in jail, and Rohan took his own life about a year ago. We then learn that the one in jail is number 89, who's a psychopath and can only find pleasure in killing. Desperate for leads, we talk to Mama, who gives us some gossip on the Kawasaki district, and how the chemical plant explosion seems suspiciously planned. We can't do anything with this information right now, but interestingly, she mentions that the Matsushima diner has also been closed since the explosion. It's strange that Ota's mom is still working there. We're out of leads, so we have to call in number 89. He wants a plea deal where he'll tell us what we want to know if we release him. In good faith, he'll even give us some info for free. We learn of a policeman turned gun for hire named Falco. Falco ended up working for the Kumakura for a bit before trying to go clean. The final job to be free was to kill a woman and a girl. We dive into number 89's Somnium to try to learn more, but only confusing things further. In Somnium, Rohan shoots Hitomi with Boss behind him. We wake up and learn that Boss is missing, and Sosajima has been discovered dead. We rush to Boss's office and hack into her computer to find a video of her shooting So. With all of our leads exhausted, we need to rethink things. Shoko's dead. Renju's dead. Iris and Ota are both dead, and now So? We need to go strange, Doctor. Find the one thread in the rope of options where we can solve this case. Iris somehow knew about the initial Cyclops killings. What if we hit the TV instead of turning the dials? Her Somnium now makes no sense, and so we leave to go and debrief. We're smarter this time, and instead of going to Marble, we go to Matsushima Diner. We're still not that smart though, and Ota gets us to look at a picture before clocking us with a walk. Luckily this time Aiba stays awake, and we see Ota run off with Iris, while Mayumi accuses Iris of being a bad influence. Also luckily, we woke up a little bit sooner than last time, and Iris isn't dead, but is still in the Okiura cold storage warehouse. We make it in time to save Iris, but not her left eye, as well as Ota, who's laying in a pool of his own blood. We find a bag of chocolate with Mayumi's grubby fingerprints all over it. She was at the scene of the crime, and she hates Iris, so she has to be the one in the polar bear costume. But when we investigate further, she starts talking about running the diner with her husband. And we know that the diner's been closed for 8 years, and Aiba tells us that her husband's been dead as well. She's supposed to be packing clothes for Ota, but she doesn't think that Ota's even in the hospital despite having visited him. She's got dementia and doesn't remember even leaving the house last night. We'll need to look elsewhere for clues. We go around town and don't learn anything new other than Hitomi lost a friend a long time ago, Manaka Iwai, and doesn't want to lose anyone else, so she's just glad that Iris is still alive. Mizuki is also at home, and we talk to her after watching her bench press 220 pounds for a bit. We reminisce about the past, and then head out and learn that Mayumi was following Ota and Iris to the warehouse, so we decide to sync with Ota as we need a better look at the crime scene. Syncing with Ota is a mistake, as he's embellishing a lot in this dream. Two things we do learn, though, is that he was stabbed by Mayumi's knife, and that the polar bear hurt their leg in the fight. In the morning, we go with Mizuki to fight crime. Before stopping off at the cold storage warehouse, we learn that Shoko and Renju didn't get along most of the time, and remember that Shoko was a terrible mother, which is one of the reasons why we've been taking care of Mizuki. Anyway, we talk to an inspector and ask him for forensics on the blood sample. At first we thought it was just Ota's blood, but now knowing that the bear hurt its leg, there could be some extra DNA inside and we want it. DNA tests take a bit of time though, so we're gonna go looking for guys with messed up legs. We wander around town for a bit, taking in the sights before Boss calls us to tell us that HQ wants to talk to Mizuki again. While she's being questioned, we go back to the cold storage warehouse and see Sosajima on the horizon walking away, with a limp. We then verify that the DNA at the crime scene matches So's, but our hands are tied because he's intertwined with the higher-ups. He's got dirt on them, so if we do anything, our job's at stake. On our way over to So's mansion, we get a video call showing Mizuki tied up at home, so we need to save her. Maybe this is the world telling us to stop, but we've come too far and they made it even more personal. We take Mizuki with us to So's mansion because she's a better fighter than we are, and we need all the help we can get. After killing all of So's bodyguards, we enter the mansion and hear So saying that he's got Mizuki. We find her and manage to save her, but not before being shot in the eye. The AI? We got shot in our left eye. So says something about being killed by our own father before we shoot him. Mizuki needs to enter our Somnium to try to wake us up now, and learns that despite us not being a good guardian, we're trying our best, and that has to count for something. Mizuki says that she wants to be with us instead of her dead parents, and that causes us to wake up. Aiba's also fine, as she's just an AI that lives in the cloud. But ultimately, we learn that So's our dad, and that he did the killings because he's just a psychopath. This doesn't sit well with me though. There must have been something I missed. At least now, only Shoko, Renju, and So have died. Maybe there's something else in Ota's dream. This time it plays out where he's not the hero and he just gets stabbed. This seems more likely, so I think we're on the right track now. We take him in for questioning, mostly to reassure him that we don't think that either he or his mom is the killer. But we need info and we need it fast. He says that he's scared because the polar bear used his mom's knife, and we aren't sure how it got a hold of it, so we need to ask Mayumi. She half-heartedly confesses to everything, but some of her facts are mixed up. Maybe because she's lying, or because she's got dementia and really can't remember. With her memory hazy, we have to let that trail go and meet Ota at the diner again. He talks about how he's a terrible son and has been his whole life, so we let him stew on that for a while we investigate. We learn that Mayumi called a cab to follow Ota, and she suspects that something nefarious happened. We talk to a cabbie who regales us with their adventure and lets us know that the van stopped at the Sajima Manor and at the Kabasaki district before going to the cold storage warehouse. We go to the Sajima Manor to see what So's up to, but he's got bigger problems. In addition to being cut up, his left eye is missing, but we can't figure out why he would be the target. The timing of the murder also lets Ota, Mayumi, and Iris off the hook for being the murderer. We don't really care about So and would rather sync with Mayumi to see if she subconsciously remembers anything at all from last night. We don't get to choose what people dream about though, and we find ourselves in the diner and see snippets of her life with her family, confirming our suspicion that Ota is a spoiled brat. After forcing Mayumi to relive these memories, we take her back to Mother's Day. Ota and Takero, Mayumi's husband, give floral gifts to show how they really do appreciate and love Mayumi, despite being jerks. After Somnium, we learn two things. One, Iris took the knife from Mayumi in the diner, and that's how it ended up at the crime scene. And B, Renju ate Shoko's eyeball. But we can't do anything with this information, and we're stuck. There has to be something we're missing. We need to go back further. Back to the beginning. What if we release the balloons in Mizuki's Somnium instead of fixing the picture? Something about being freed from all of this? I don't know, but we have nothing else to go on at this point, and people keep dying. At least this way it's only Shoko. Under the merry-go-round, we see something strange though. Iris lies dead with her right eye missing and stab wounds across her back. Aiba tries to comfort Mizuki as best as she can, but since the picture wasn't fixed, Mizuki is still mute. We call Iris, who's still alive, so maybe Mizuki now has prophetic dreams. We tell Iris to stay put in exchange of hanging out with her tomorrow. On the car ride back to Bloom Park, we hear on the news that Shoko's body has been found, and unrelated, there was an accident on the highway, but it must have cleared up as the road we're on is empty. Back at the merry-go-round, we discover a phone inside the horse that Shoko was strapped to. Calling it works the first time, but we get nervous and tell them we're a cop and they hang up immediately. I've never said that we're smart. The next day, we find out that one of the people in the accident was Renju, and that he's at the hospital. Only he's not. He's escaped, is on the lam. Last time we needed to find Renju, we found him hanging out at Sunpo, so we try again, but he isn't here. It's just Ota, who's a regular, because of course he is. Ota's as unhelpful as ever, except he does let us know that Iris was streaming last night, but had to end early because someone was at the door, and no one's heard from her since. Mizuki's also gone missing, but we find her at home with Hitomi, who's been with Mizuki since leaving the hospital. At least in one universe we're good to Mizuki. Searching for clues takes us back to the Kumakuras, where we learn that Moma is a huge ASET fan. Using this to blackmail him, we learn more about Rohan and how after he got hit in the head too many times, he became a little too bloodthirsty, as well as was unable to register anything on his right side. We learned earlier that Rohan likes to take the eyes of those he thought were pretty, so this starts to tidy up the old Cyclops killer's motives. Rohan took the right eye because that's all he could see. It doesn't help with the new Cyclops killer case though. On the car ride back to Abyss, Aiba tells us that she can self-destruct if she's ever in the wrong hands. Or head? We come up with a two-factor authentication code to make sure that she doesn't blow up inside of us on accident. We use the code 41205, and then we tell a lie. Easy. We also try to call back the number, with Aiba pretending to be Shoko, because dead people call on phones. Somehow it works though, and we find out that Sosajima was the one who tried to call Shoko the night that she was killed. Mostly lining up to last time, number 89 calls the police to give us information about Shoko's murder in exchange for freedom. At night, we go to the cold storage warehouse as we've hacked So's phone and it's weird for him to go to an abandoned warehouse at night. We investigate to find Iris's body under a sheet, just like how we saw in Mizuki's dream. We question So, but he knows his rights, so we need to dive into his brain to see if he has any info for us that he subconsciously wants to give up. In Somnium, we watch Iris die. A lot. We clear paths for her and ultimately stop the Blue Man from killing her before we have to leave So's mind. We also get a call from the investigation squad that there isn't a body in the warehouse. The only logical solution is that by saving her in Somnium, we saved her in real life. The next day, we wander around town trying to get any scraps of info we can. We don't learn much though, only that a friend of Renju is likely to be at Marble tonight, and that Iris loves to dance. Again, having no leads, number 89 is brought to the station in an attempt to glean any information. Not only is he not helpful, but he beats us up and leaves with Pewter as a hostage. But we later find Pewter as cool as a cucumber, and it's not just because of the green he's wearing. We may get a pay cut for this one. At just about rock bottom, Moma calls us to tell us that Renju's been seen, but wants to meet Iris in exchange for info. We need to take Iris on a date anyway, so this works out nicely. In exchange for shaking Iris's hand, Moma tells us that Renju was seen at Sunfish Pocket as well as the Ikume Shrine. We visit both locations, but Renju seems to be on the move as he's not at either one. At least Iris tells us about the legend of the shrine, where the fruit of immortality is supposed to reside. Talking about fruit makes us hungry though, and so we go to the diner and have Ota make us his famous omu rice, while Iris and Ota talk about parallel worlds and mysterious happenings. Speaking of food, we need to go to Marble to meet Renju's friend. We're greeted in Golden Yokocho by a bunch of mercenaries with assault rifles, but manage to kill them. Our murder count is higher at this point than the serial killers, but it's too late to turn back now. Iris tells us that a secret organization, known as Nizit Laws, or NIZE for short, was after her because she figured out their murderous secrets and their plan to take over the world. We need to see if she's telling the truth, so we sync with her, and incidentally end up playing Shovel Forge with her. Through the power of dance, we defeat NIZE that's infiltrated her mind. We become Iris's bodyguard to protect her from evil, and recruit Moma to help save her from NIZE Mataz, in exchange for Iris showing him her panties, but settle for another handshake instead. He also gives us a GPS for Iris to wear in case something happens to her phone and we can't reach her. The next day, while retracing our steps, Iris beats us in a race and gives us an info dump on Egyptian mythology and how her stage name relates to her actual name. We then make our way to Marble to apologize for being late and learn that Renju has been in bed with Pewter in more ways than one. We chase down Pewter, who has Aiba shock us before he ends up kidnapping Iris. Good thing we had that GPS. We track her down to the warehouse district, because of course that's where she's gonna be. Moma, Ota, and Mizuki come as backup and become fast friends due to their love for Iris. We kill about 15 more soldiers before rescuing Iris from a van. After saving Iris, we cool our feet at the shrine for a bit, where she tells us that the person who visited her the other night was Renju, and she wanted to help him because he was all sickly looking. She went with him and ultimately decided to run at the chemical plant in the Kawasaki district as he started acting a little weird. We go there to see why Renju wanted to take Iris there, and learn that there's a prototype sinking machine. While looking around, Iris collapses, and Aiba tells us that Iris only has minutes left to live. We set her up in the sinking machine in hopes that we can bring her to a parallel world where she lives, but because it's a prototype, it's more rudimentary, and in order to sink, each person needs to remove their left eye for the tendrils to take hold. Wait, their left eye? Huh. No time for that though, as we dive into her mind, which is another Shovel Forge rendition of Ikume Shrine. We fight NIZE one last time before feeding Iris the fruit of immortality. She thanks us for waking her up, and we come out of Somnium. She wakes up, but she isn't better. We reassure each other that things are gonna be okay. We saved her from NIZE, so it has to be okay. We did everything right, so why? We've only known her for a couple of days, but it feels longer. Maybe it's because time slows down in moments like these. There are times where we can't accept results, where we can't change the past. But we can in this case, right? What if we tell her that NIZE doesn't exist? They weren't the ones that killed her, so maybe they actually aren't real. It's worth a shot anyway, right? We crush Iris's dreams, and understandably, she's upset. Ota hides Iris in his house, and we visit Hitomi to try to figure out what's going on. It turns out that Iris is delirious because of stage 4 brain cancer, with only a few months left to live. Or less, as we found out. There's only one way to treat her, but we're interrupted as it sounds like Iris left with the person she trusts the most. At this point, it's gotta be Renju if it's not anyone else that's at the diner or at her house. The only place Renju can hide at this point is the Okiura cold storage warehouse. We make our way there and use the X-ray to find a dead body inside a forklift. Iris is dead again, her right eye taken out. Always a fan of quick math, We know that it would take about 18 hours for someone weighing about 105 pounds to be frozen solid, and we saw Iris more recently than that. We re-examine the body and see that the victim gave birth shortly after she died. We now have more on our plate as Iris is still missing and we need to figure out who this person is that looks like Iris but isn't. We meet up with Mizuki, who tells us that Renju looked at the body about a month ago and Mizuki followed him and saw the body as well. She mistook it for Iris, but then saw Iris, so she tried to repress the memory. With the help from Aiba, we connect the dots, learning that the body is one Manaka Iwai, Hitomi's best friend. We take Hitomi in for questioning, eventually needing to sync with her. We learn from Pewter and Boss that them telling us that we can only stay in Somnium for 6 minutes is kind of a lie. If we stay longer, we'll begin to transfer consciousness. Interesting. No time for that though, we need clues. We see Renju and Hitomi in a forest, with Manaka inside of a hole. Her right eye has been removed as she lies dead. Hitomi can't handle the pressure anymore and tells us everything. Manaka had a baby with Sosajima. So wanted to terminate the baby, but Manaka kept it. She decided to tell So about the baby immediately after giving birth, and had Hitomi and Renju hold on to the baby until she returned. When Manaka met with So near the warehouse, she was ambushed by So's son, Saito. Saito killed Manaka and had the Kumakura dispose of the body. Renju and Hitomi watched as Manaka was buried. They eventually cleaned up Manaka as it was too unceremonious to leave her in the forest. The cold storage warehouse forklift was a better fit. Hitomi adopted the baby, who they named Iris after goddesses, as well as because Iris is part of the eye, which Rohan took. Anyway, as Iris was a child of So's, when Hitomi found out that Iris had cancer, she tried to blackmail So into giving enough money for the treatment, which is how we uncovered the body. Hitomi waits until now to tell us that she knows where Iris is, but won't tell us where exactly, as we've been instructed to go together for some reason. We leave and she takes us to the chemical plant. Aiba's also being hacked into and doesn't have much time before she's cut off from the internet. We need to hurry. We make our way to the back of the plant and see Renju in the prototype sync machine, with one less left eyeball. Number 89 ambushes us and knocks us out. There's nothing we can do right now other than reflect. Remember when everyone was dead? How weird was that? What if our boss made her way to Hitomi's house, and when we get there, it ends up being in a shootout with the boss and SAT officers over a misunderstanding? What would be a good way to wrap up something crazy like that though? How would all of these killings make sense? Maybe if Saito and Rohan initially swapped bodies, then Rohan and Shoko could swap bodies. Shoko, now in Rohan, would go mad and would probably kill themselves. Shoko could then talk to Renju and they could do a body swap, who could body swap with Iris, who swaps with So, who then swaps with the boss, and each person kills the last along the way to leave no witnesses. All of these would have to be done with the proto-sync machine though, since they wouldn't have access to Abyss, so they'd have to remove their left eye. Oh. First off, that's crazy. And what would be the end goal anyway? That Saito wants his original body back? And we're in Saito's original body? If we gave him his body back, then he'd probably just go on a killing spree again. It's been established that Saito's a psychopath and only finds pleasure in killing. There's no way that we should swap bodies with him, even if this is his. I'm not boss and I don't want her body. I don't think I like this thought exercise. Why are we even doing this in the first place? We'll just wake up and... Oh, hey Saito. We were just dreaming of how you killed everyone. And what's that? You're gonna sync with me so we both get our bodies back. Well, that's nice, I guess. You're gonna kill Iris and Hitomi in front of me? Oh, that's kinda rude. Well, we swap bodies because I don't really have a choice. Our memories rush back in. We learn that we're Falco, and we swap bodies with Rohan so that the Kumakura don't attack Hitomi and Iris. We then accidentally let Saito know that we swapped bodies with Rohan, and he wants to play too. In Saito's body, we run away and get taken in by Boss even though we don't know anything, finally coming full circle. Momo comes in to save us before the rest of the A-Set fan club shows up thanks to Aiba letting everyone know that we're in trouble. We chase Saito around the warehouse first, saving Iris before the final confrontation. He's got Hitomi, and unless we drop our rifle, we're all gonna watch her die. We give in and drop the rifle, but it turns out that Saito's a no-good liar and he's gonna kill her anyway. In an act of desperation, Aiba calls Ota's phone and reminds us that she can self-destruct, but without any backup data, she could be lost forever. With little choice, we issue the command. Time passes. The next thing we know is that it's 3 months later, in February. Using hush money from the police, Iris was able to pay for surgery and they managed to remove the brain tumor. We make the rounds telling everyone that she's out of the hospital. Word on the street is that we got plastic surgery to look like number 89, as we got pretty messed up in the incident. At the end of the day, Iris takes us to the warehouse district, where she activates the present that Boss gave us. Aiba's back, which is cause for celebration. Ultimately, despite everyone dying, only Shoko, Renju, and Saito actually died. 3 deaths isn't nothing, but it doesn't seem like Tokyo's any more dangerous than it is now. This was seemingly an outlier event that was stoked because someone lost their body and wanted it back, and things got out of hand. That being said, I think the chances of Earth becoming more dangerous after this event is high. We're one of a few people to know that the sync machine exists and the power that it has. Pewter's another, but he's in jail and his lover's dead, so he has no reason not to say anything and let nefarious groups know that such a technology exists and how it works. They even mention in-game that the prototype was stolen. It's been 6 years and they weren't able to locate it. In that amount of time, couldn't someone who stole it look into developing more machines or determining how it works? Similarly, he also knows how the Wadjet system works and can create more AI balls to give anyone the same powers that we have. We're just lucky that Date was one of the good guys. Aiba can also hack into 99% of all computers, so needless to say, if she were to fall into the wrong hands, no one's data would be safe. Once leaks get out for these technologies, it's just a matter of time before the world descends into chaos with affluent groups trying their best to replicate, if not take it for themselves. The Somnium Files was received relatively well, and I also enjoyed it. The first hour or so, I was wondering if this was something that I wanted to finish, but as I continued to progress, I got more and more invested in the story and wanted to see how it ended. The beginning half of the game also had a lot of puns. Nearly everything in the background that you could click on had Date and Aiba doing a bit. As the game progressed, these interactions slowed down and the background objects were mostly just descriptions, but there were still several times where after the two did a bit, I stared into the void and just sighed. This was likely due to the developers wanting to make the game more widespread, and so needed a lighthearted counterbalance to the otherwise grim tone. Even the title's a play on words. I could be for the use of AI that Date uses, or for the homonym of I, which played a big part in the story, including one of the main protagonist's names. In addition, I can mean love, which we see throughout the story as well. Each character displays their love for others in various ways, and we get to explore affection and lack thereof. I think the only real negative I had about it, other than some plot points that didn't seem to really make sense in game, was that there were a few puzzles where I had no idea and didn't think that they gave us great hints as to what to do. Because of this, I felt that there were a few instances of reloading the puzzle and just guessing until something worked. This wasn't all puzzles though. Some of them, like the initial warehouse puzzle with the TVs, I thought were clever, and I felt smart after realizing I just needed to reenact the crimes to progress. Thank you all so much for watching this episode on how dangerous the world can be in the Somnium Files. Be sure to leave a comment on what other games we can discover. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one.